Hello my friends, family and esteemed colleagues. There is this question keep coming up with the GLUT. GLUT is the transporting mechanism for sugars. Of course, science is telling us that we have a GLUT2, GLUT4, GLUT6, whatever GLUT for different types of a sugar. This is all, I wouldn't say nonsense, but it is not, it's unimportant, because no matter what GLUT you have, it is going to absorb sugar. And take the sugar, transport it. Now, I explained through my work that the more starches we eat, cooked processed carbohydrates, and more frequently we eat them, the constant presence of glucose that shows up in our digestive tract is going to be stimulating increase of GLUT protein, transporting mechanism for sugar. Now, why is that so? Because GLUT is normally in our blood and in our cells, has to be present so the sugar can be absorbed into the cell without the need of insulin, because insulin is abrasive. It is forcing cells to absorb sugar, so it is like the override. It's a measure for special circumstances, and this is why insulin is squirted in the blood only when levels of a sugar increase over what I call the radar. So you have sudden increase of blood sugar. Now, when is that happening in wild animals? Let's take humans and domestic animals away. In wild animals, when is that happening? Only when they are in stress, only when they are fighting for life. Okay, so this is done so the brain and muscle are flooded with glucose, and then they use it to produce energy, in this case. But since there is very small amount of glycogen in brain and in muscle tissue, and that's the only tissue that we find glycogen in, other than liver. But no muscle cells, no brain cells can release glucose from glycogen into the blood. This is for their own consumption, but for immediate reaction. A lion shows in your house. Well, you gotta think quickly what you're gonna do. Of course you want to run away, but you have to find a way how. And then if you can't, then you know you have to fight. With what? So you have to calculate your best option. So brain, to do so very rapidly, it needs increased energy. Normally we get increased energy by acceleration of the heart, but also this is going to happen. But we are programmed also to get access to the explosive fuel. Now, why glucose is explosive fuel? I explained that through my work, that basically we have our cells, animal cells, since they are programmed to use fat to produce energy, and fat comes loaded with hydrogen but no oxygen. So oxygen has to be added so the carbon can be pasted to it and release hydrogen. And we produce carbon dioxide and leaving hydrogen behind as the energy source. Hydrogen is, in our three-dimensional reality, representation of the electric current, which has no three-dimensional representation. You cannot see electricity. Well, you cannot even see the hydrogen. But okay, let's say that you can see it. But it's a three-dimensional version of electron flowing around. So this happens only in life-threatening situation. And this is when you may be a little longer in this state, and when you run out of this energy, you get so depleted that you would collapse. So the liver is programmed, it's a backup system that will also transform glycogen into glucose, and liver is the only organ in the body that can release it in the blood. And this is what creates a sudden increase of blood sugar, and this is when the insulin will be squirted so the cells can absorb it, because cell is not programmed to absorb sugar from blood other than through transporting mechanism, which is GLUT. It's a slow process. It is there only to supply enough oxygen for cells to produce nucleic acids. They need carboxyl group and proteins. So this is basically how, in a short recapitulation, how it works. But now when you start taking glucose directly absorbing from the gut, well, again, you have limited absorption mechanism. So you take a limited amount of glucose that is going to be able to be absorbed from intestines into the blood. It all depends on the GLUT. But since the body knows what to do with glucose, and if it is too much of it, it will convert it into fat. So it will be absorbing it, but it can only absorb from intestines as much as GLUT availability is. So the more glucose becomes available, the more GLUT stimulation is going on, and we start producing more GLUT. It is very slow progress. It usually takes years for this to happen. People used to, now what does it mean? What is the pre-diabetic state? Well, pre-diabetic state is basically we are taking in increased amount of glucose because we have increased the GLUT protein levels. So we start absorbing more. It is not how much sugar you have in one sitting. Some people can have one bite of bread and their sugar jumps through the roof because they have a lot of GLUT. So they just absorb it. But on the other side, you have other people that can have whole cake, and sugar jumps just slightly. Why? Not that much GLUT, so they cannot absorb it. Some people say, oh, fast and slow mechanism, digestive mechanism. Has nothing to do with it. Digestive mechanism is the same. It's just availability of GLUT, how much you are going to absorb. And there are different triggers also for from production of GLUT. Nobody's focusing on this. So this is all tricky stuff. And why some people can eat a lot of sugar, usually when they're younger, and they don't have many problems with it. But as we are getting older, we're getting more and more, and pow! Then all of a sudden, when we are in our 50s, late 40s, we would see people starting having elevated sugar level, blood sugar level, because the absorption is so high that it will rise the sugar over the level. Has nothing to do at that point yet with insulin resistance. Well, it could be combination later, because cellular membrane is going to thicken up, because insulin is very abrasive. When we are bringing glucose through our digestive system, sugar is spiking all the time. In a stress or without stress, it doesn't matter. And actually what happens is that glucoholics, the more they are adjusted towards a plant energy source, the less power they can increase during the stress, because their body is adjusted to these conditions, and it is not going to produce any more power when you are in a stress or if you are not in a stress, because you are basically using the food for stress situations all the time. This is creating what we call the soy boys. Everything falls apart. Brain, manhood, we become softies, all because of the freaking diet. We become plants. So, now, the thing is, people start accepting this. So now the question is, okay, I want to go and fix my body to work correctly. When body works correctly, it is working on ketones, on fat. It's what we call in ketogenic state. This is how we should always be. All animals, all wild animals are in ketogenic state. So why do you think we should not be there? Give me one reason. If our body is built exactly the same way, we have animal body. We're not plants. So we can get very quickly into ketogenic state by simply stopping poisoning ourselves with plants. Now, you cannot even get to starches unless you process the plant, because by nature we are shielded from them, because plant is cellulose, sugar, but basically fiber is in cellulose. Everything is in a fiber in a plant, so you cannot get to the starch, because it's always encapsulated with cellulose. You cannot digest it. No matter what you do, you can't. Not even herbivores can, but they ferment it, and then bacteria can. They will break the cellulose. They will convert glucose into, and even plant proteins, they will convert them into fat. And then they regurgitate this and then swallow it. That goes into proper stomach, where then it is being processed as a fat and protein, animal fat and protein, created by bacteria. We don't have this possibility. Yeah, it happens in a colon, but absorption is in small intestine. and food travels the opposite direction. So unless you eat your own feces after you ate vegetables, you have no access to this protein and fat that was created by your flora of your gut. We don't regurgitate our feces. So the way to correct our system on genetic level, because this all becomes genetic manipulation through food. Simple. We have been tricked into it. Thousands, 8,000 years ago, more. So, simply by stopping poisoning ourselves with the plants, especially cooked plants, because when you cook, when you heat up cellulose, it will burst. And this is why you can eat kilos of sweet potato raw or bananas raw, sweet ripe bananas, and you will be losing weight like crazy. You start boiling them or frying them, you start gaining weight like crazy, because you are releasing the starch which is in there, which is inside of the cells. You are breaking the cellular membranes, which are made out of cellulose. So that's what happens. So if you stop poisoning yourself with the plant food and switch strictly to animal products, dairy, eggs, any kind of meat, from shrimp, fish to elephant, anything but raw, then you have no longer access to glucose. And cells first will be carefully waiting. So first day, nothing happens. You are starving. And since you are putting yourself in very bad situation, because you don't have enough mitochondria running to use fat, they have to be reactivated. But cells now don't want to reactivate. This shows you how dangerous the plant food actually is for us. Plants are going to wait 24 hours, and then after 24 hours they will start, if still glucose is not coming in the blood, they will start slowly activating mitochondria. So second day you start feeling better. By the end of the third day, you'll feel okay. Your cells will activate enough mitochondria to produce enough energy from fat that you have in your body. But they are on lookout, sharp lookout. Any piece of carbohydrate, piece of bread, anything you swallow, your cells immediately go into shutdown. They stop shutting the mitochondria. So you can be 2 weeks free of plant food, and sometime beginning of the third week you decide, okay, just a little piece of bread, bingo, you are pushed right back where you start with. All the mitochondria shuts up that was shut before. So it takes about 3 weeks. It's the number 3. It's this magical number. Or 7. In 3 weeks, that's a typical cellular memory. After 3 weeks, well, let's focus better. Let's take it on 1 month. After 1 month, you can occasionally have something, and your body is not going to shut what you have done before. But still, You repeat it the second day and bam, it's going to stop because the cellular memory is still going to be active. You actually need to be out of plant diet for months to be able to start occasionally cheating without this to happen. I have noticed that people that have been diabetics and they correct their diet, within 3 months, if they have a test done, they are pronounced that they have no diabetes. And if they eat some fruits, sugar doesn't come up. A little bit, that's it, and doesn't keep increasing. You can then eat You can eat fruits every day. Why? Because fructose will not trigger GLUT activation. It will be absorbed by GLUT, but fructose is not a sugar that the body is programmed to use. Plants are tricking us with this because brain loves sweets, so we eat the fruits and spread the seeds. That's the only purpose. And this is why bear is very hungry in the fall when it starts eating berries and starts killing and becomes way more violent, dangerous than it was in the spring or summer when it was much skinnier, searching for food because it was not eating sweet. Also, after eating honey, bear also becomes more aggressive. So we just have to learn the truth. I'm being asked lately, well, how long do we have to stay away from plants before the GLUT drops down? Well, GLUT will drop down within 3 months. But should you go back to plants? I know we love the food. I am there too. If I go to a restaurant to eat, and if they have French fries, I'm going to order them with a bunch of salt and mayo. But do I have it in the house? No. Do I eat in a restaurant often? No. Only on occasions. And yes, sometimes I restrain myself, and when in restaurant I order what is it called, the sushimi, if possible. There is one place here that has it, but ceviche, and when I order ceviche, I don't eat the onions in it. I make sure they didn't put garlic. I just pick the fish from it, or shellfish if it's with a mixed shellfish fish. I don't even, well, sometimes I have a little bit of that lemon juice that is staying behind, but not much. They call it tiger soup. Has a bite to it. But, you know, like everybody else, I'm now getting, since I really forced myself not to eat chocolate. Yesterday I had chocolate. I didn't particularly enjoy it. Today I feel like, meh. So I'm losing, finally, I'm losing the taste for chocolate. To stop poisoning myself with cacao. And baked potatoes in oven when they become very soft, and then squeezing actually potato out and having the potato skin, which is actually the more toxic, with butter and salt. Phew. I love this. I didn't have this for 8 years. One of my favorite food, garbage food. Now I have to take care of myself. I have to stop with these experiments. I understand the food now well enough. And I have to switch now to raw meat. Yesterday my wife prepared pork, but was on the phone, you know, her ex-husband just died from jab. 63-year-old young man, otherwise in health, very, very healthy, not obese, actually skinny, because there's nothing to eat in Venezuela. People are they have very problematic government. So, democracy. They democratically voted this asshole, and then they cannot now democratically vote him out because he suspended democracy under the disguise of democracy. I have democratically decided that I'm going to tell you what to do. This is communism. Chavism. Okay, so we gotta learn. We gotta learn truth, man. Americans have no clue how good they have it. They have been turned into zombies. Okay, so my recommendation, don't ever go back to plant food. Never. We are going to learn now that we don't even need to eat. We are toroidal field. We are pure energy in motion. We do not need any energy source. Heart produces it. Well, if we want to continue eating, we will manifest the food. We will learn the truth. That everything that is in your reality also exists in quantum field. In a quantum field of energy, conscious energy, it is being put together in a form of sacred geometry, which then the brain is reproducing through sensors as your three-dimensional reality. So whatever you can think of, you can actually manifest. When you get hold of instant manifestation, we can all do it. We are just being duped into this stupid science that we can do nothing. What is cannot change. And in the meantime, everything is constantly changing. Constantly. Everything is flickering in and out of reality 1,000,000 times a second. And every flicker is a different reality. It's a picture. So, my recommendation, stay a hell away from vegetables, even fruits. Now everything is poisoned. Remember, vegetables cannot cleanse, they only absorb. So every poison that is put on the ground or on them, they will absorb. And it stays there. They don't sweat, they don't urinate, they don't defecate. It is better to eat animal that has been poisoned than plant, because animal will defecate and urinate and cleanse. So some of it, or most of it, or all of it is going to be cleansed before you actually eat the animal. Why do you think that they are attacking beef industry, chicken industry, pork industry? They don't want us to live healthy. Don't you get it? So, don't even look back. Start eating meat, start eating it seared if you didn't have it before, lightly cooked, and then as you get used to it, start heating it less and less and less and go into raw meat eating. You can prepare it. There are many different things you can do with it. You know, you can definitely salt it because it's much tastier with the salt, sea salt only, not refined, not iodide. All this iodine baloney, it's, to me, it is clear and clear that all these iodine studies are promoted so well because they are all poisoning the body. There's no particular benefit of iodine. And again, I can prove it with my work. I had many clients with goiter, many clients that had even been operated and have almost no thyroid. Not single one in 18 years needed iodine supplementation, and they're all healed. They all dropped the hormones and everything else, and they're perfectly okay now. Let's scrap all the signs that came from before. Just scrap it. Just ignore it. Let's start fresh. Observe. Observe, hydrate, change your diet. Remember, if you do everything exactly opposite from what the science is telling you, you are going to be perfect. You're going to be right there on the money. So what does the science of nutrition tell you? We gotta eat vegetables, cooked raw, vegetable, fruits, yeah, fruits, cooked raw, fruits, meat, no. But if you have to have meat, make sure you cook it really well to make sure that you kill all the parasites that are in there and all the bacteria and everything that is there. You gotta kick it, destroy it, kill it. Then you can eat meat. Well, if you do that, meat is toxic. You overcook the meat, it coagulates. It needs bacteria to break it down, causing now toxic. It's a decay. What happens with a tissue, with animal tissue, when it starts decaying? It goes into necrosis. And if there is a big patch of necrotic tissue, the necrotic enzymes seep into blood, and what happens? Sepsis. You die. It's strong poison. Well, this thing is happening inside of your intestinal tract when you overcooked meat. Cannot eat it that way. So you do everything exactly opposite. Vegetables, fruits, vegetables, don't touch it. Cooked raw, don't touch it. Meat, cooked and killed, no, raw. Eat like a lion. Eat like a tiger. Eat like a bear. Not the one that scavenges in a garbage. You don't want to be garbage scavenger. You want to be a healthy specimen. Kodiak bear. Polar bear. Eat correctly. And you will see health returning into your body. It doesn't matter about GLUT. If you don't eat plants, who cares? You will never have much GLUT. You will always have the necessary amount of GLUT for your cells to be able to produce amino acids and proteins. And this is why you have sugar in the blood in low levels all the time, available for these processes. And you don't need insulin for this sugar to come in the cells, because this is what GLUT is for. It will just pick it up and bring it into the cell. Insulin will be only squirted when you are in a stress situation. And this is the only time when blood sugar levels should rise up. It's your boosting explosive fuel. Less frequently you are in stress, the healthier you are going to be. And when you are eating your frequent plants, your body is operating daily like it is in a stress situation. Insulin is daily punched. You are having daily poisoning with insulin. And then you wonder, how come I live only 60 years, 70 years, 80 years, 100 years? It's nothing. We should live 600 and plus years. And we don't do it because we are glucoholics. You got to learn the truth. It's right there in front of our eyes. Thank you for listening. Till next time. Love you all. Light, I cannot even see the button.